War II, before the war.
Okay.
And then the second gallery is the wartime story, what happened to us during the war. And then the third gallery is after the war, returning home, trying to reestablish our communities.
Yeah.
And then finally, campaigning to get the government to actually acknowledge the injustice that they did on us. So,
Right.
so that's the whole layout.
Okay. Very interesting.
So we can start over here. Well, first of all, we'll start over here.
Okay.
Because then, you know, we won't have to come back.
Sure.
But this is a barrack that we were placed in during the war.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are the barracks, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know how much have you know. How much do you know about what happened to Japanese Americans?
I know a lot, but my wife doesn't know because she grew up in Korea, so she doesn't know about the history.
But you understand English well.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Yeah, she does. Yeah.
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 This is an actual barrack that we had to live in. You know, when we were placed in a concentration camp.
Really?
This actually came from Heart Mountain in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is only part of the building. We couldn't put the whole barrack here.
Really?
But this is only 1/3 of the barrack.
Mm-hmm.
The barrack has 6 rooms, and we're only showing you 2 of the rooms.
Okay. Wow.
But you can see the construction, how very crude it was, and just the tar paper. The only thing that you know, the installation wise.
Really? That was terrible.
And that winter, that first winter, the temperature went to 40 below zero.
Really? Oh my God, it's crazy.
Now each unit had a stove, but you know you couldn't feel the heat because it's so cold.
That's terrible.
And then the barracks did not have any ceilings. It has a roof, but no ceiling.
Oh wow.
So there's no privacy. You could hear from one end to the barrack to the other.
Oh my gosh.
Now there was a partition between the units which we didn't, you know, we took away. But it was very flimsy, and so you could practically hear right through it anyway.
Right.
Wow.
So there was really no privacy. Now there were actually 3 different sides. Well, you could notice that there was a double door here because when you have a storm outside, whether it's a snowstorm or sandstorms, you had this double door to kind of protect you from the outside. You'll notice there's just a wooden floor here on that small room on the end here. The small room on both ends of the barracks housed maybe a family of 3 or 4. And the only thing we were issued when we were assigned to these rooms was a bed. So each person had a bed, but they had no other furniture. And it's just a wooden floor, so you had no carpets, no linoleum or anything like that. So these cracks between the boards, you know, made it so that you had sand blowing through during the summertime, and you had cold air blowing through there during the wintertime.
Wow.
So it was not a very comfortable situation.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that most of us were American citizens. You know, we're not foreigners. We're citizens.
Yeah.
And our rights were just taken away from us, and because we had an enemy's face, right? We had the enemy's face.
Right.
So they put us into these concentration camps.
That's terrible. Yeah.
And there was no seating. So this is a larger room, and so they housed about 10 people in this room here.
Okay.
So usually an extended family, the grandparents and the parents and all the kids. So it's just lined up with beds. So again, there's no privacy, right? So we had to hang sheets or blankets.
Oh wow.
So we have some privacy.
Wow.
But anyway, this is the barrack. And then we didn't eat inside these barracks.
Oh no.
We eat in mess hall, this
Mess hall.
community,
Okay.
communal dining hall.
Oh.
So that kind of destroyed the family structure. Because instead of a family eating together, you know, us kids, we ate with our friends.
Right.
So it was good for kids. I mean, they get to eat with their friends. They don't have to eat with parents, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Right.
But that destroyed that family structure, you know.
Right.
I don't know, if you
Interesting.
ever have a question, just ask me if you have any questions.
No, personally, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
did you grow up in the?
I was in a concentration
Oh yeah,
camp,
which one were you in?
Colorado,
In Colorado. So what was the name of that one?
Amache.
Amache. Oh,
Well,
wow.
actually, it's called Grenada Relocation Center, but we always call it Amache because Grenada is a small town, and the mail that for the camp was going through Grenada. They couldn't handle the mail
Wow.
because it's a small town. So we established our own post office in the camp.
Oh.
And so we named it after a local Indian princess. Her name was Amache.
Amache. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow,
so it's always
interesting.
known as Amache.
And how old were you when you were at the camp?
I was 10.
You were 10. Wow. So you vividly remember it then.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll show you a picture of me in the camp.
Oh, do you? Okay. Well, that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were too young to go into serve as in World War II then?
No,
Yeah.
the Korean War. I was in the Korean
You were in
War.
the Korean War. Wow. So
Okay,
you're a
so-
veteran then, huh? Wow, that's awesome.
So this is me in the camp.
Oh wow. That's when you were 10, huh?
Yeah.
And that's your brothers
That's my brother and my mother.
and your mother. Okay.
And this is the camp I was in.
Wow.
It's Amache. Now, when the war started, all Japanese family had to register. So that's our registry number.
Well, that was it, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then that was our address in the camp. So AD is the block. The block has about 400 people. There's 12 barracks. And so our block 80 was right at the edge of the camp here. And the barrack number was number 4, the barrack number.
Oh, wow.
And D is the apartment number in the barrack. So that was our address.
Wow. So what in your situation, if you don't mind me asking, did you lose your family lose your house that you were living in before and the property, or what were you guys doing before?
Well, this is my cousin who was killed in the war.
Oh, that's your cousin? Okay.
Well, see, we had see, I'm third generation.
So your sansei?
Yeah, so my mother's a citizen.
Yeah.
So we had a house in San Francisco. And so we had it taken care of by a white family.
Okay.
Told them to rent, it was 3 flats, you know. So we told them to rent it and keep the rent, just return the house.
Right, right.
And so fortunately,
Yeah.
we put everything in the basement, boarded it up,
Yeah.
and then we came back and, you know, we got everything back.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't have any problem.
Well, that's good.
But Niseis,
Yeah.
you know, the immigrants,
Yeah.
they couldn't own property.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So most people did not have a place to come back to because they're renting, you know.
Wow.
And other people, you know, we had hundreds of communities, especially in the farm community, hundreds of communities. They're all gone because
Really?
no one could come back because they didn't own the land.
Wow.
My grandfather's place, my grandfather owned a farm. They burned everything down.
Oh, really?
Before he came home, the townspeople came, robbed them, or just broke in, stole whatever they wanted,
Oh, wow.
and they just burned everything else down.
And where was that farm at?
The farm was in Pescadero.
Pescadero.
Yeah, you know where Pescadero is?
Is that in California or?
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
California.
Okay.
Yep, and about 50 miles south of San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's terrible. So they never your grandfather never recouped that land then?
Well, he got the land.
Oh, he got the land, but it was just
they
destroyed.
didn't- yeah, but all the buildings were all burned down.
Oh, that's terrible.
You know, the barn,
Yeah.
workers' housing.
Yeah.
He had a big house that he had built when he moved there. He built it on a bluff. You could overlook the Pacific Ocean. You see ships going by, whales going by.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, but
Very interesting. Wow.
lost everything.
Oh, geez, that's too bad. Wow. Interesting.
So, you have any questions about the camp itself? Anybody have any questions?
How many camps were there in
Well, there were 10.
10?
Yeah, that was run by the War Relocation Authority, which
Yeah.
is a civilian unit. So those were the community was sent to. But there were also camps where aliens, you know, the community leaders were placed in. Those were actually run by the Justice Department. So we distinguish between the 2 types of camps. The camps that we were placed in, that was run by the civilian unit, is called the concentration camp, because by definition, that's what it was.
Right.
But the one that our community leaders were sent to, the one that was run by the Justice Department, they're internment camps.
Internment camp, I see.
Yeah, because they only had aliens,
Oh, I see. Okay.
not citizens.
Not citizens. Yeah, I guess that would be interesting. Wow. Difference in names. Okay. Those are all the suitcases that were there, huh?
Well, that's just an exhibit
Oh, is it? Okay.
to show you immigration.
Mm-hmm.
People coming from all over the world. So
Yeah.
it's about the diversity of America. You know, because we're all descendants of immigrants.
Right, right.
That's what we're trying to show.
Yeah, except for the Native Americans, huh? Yeah.
Those are early Japanese diplomats that came to Washington. So,
Oh, wow.
but we're kind of showing you that the early Japanese did not come with suitcases, okay? Because these are Western suitcases, right?
Right, right, yeah.
So they came with these baskets.
Oh, they came with the basket. Oh, wow.
So,
This is what they usually brought
you
up.
know, and that's common to many of the Asian countries. You know, before they came with suitcases, they came with these baskets.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So it
Lighter to
just-
carry, I guess, huh? That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, because they didn't have that much belongings to bring with them, and then
Right.
these kind of double up. If you put the cover on, you know, it doubles up.
Oh, I see. Well, it's interesting that you have those.
So on this other side here is the first group that came because Japan was a closed country,
Right.
as you know, and so they didn't let people in, foreign visitors in, or let its citizens out. So it was closed for over 250 years.
Wow.
But when Hawaii needed workers, they were recruiting from all over the world. So when they finally asked Japan for some workers, they sent about 150 individuals to work in Hawaii. And this was in 1868. 1868.
Wow.
Until then, it was closed. But you know, they were not treated very well.
Yeah.
You know, when the Japanese got there, they were not treated very. They were kind of looked upon as slaves. Their wages were very low. Their working conditions were very harsh, and even their living quarters were so poor that half of them returned to Japan, and they complained to the Japanese government. So the Japanese government said, well, you know, if they're going to be treated that way, we're not going to let anybody out. So they closed immigration again for another 17 years.
Wow.
Now, you can see some of the items that they you know, the early
That is interesting.
ones brought.
Yeah.
Can you guess what this is?
That's for tea?
No.
Or what?
not for- it's a lunchbox.
Oh, lunchbox. Oh, really? Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's what they brought, you know, when they work out in the
Oh, they go on the
fields.
field. Oh, wow.
You take the lunchbox.
Yeah.
And and you look at these coins here.
Yeah.
What do you see on there?
A hole.
Yeah, there's a hole, but what else?
I don't know. It's kind of rusted, so you can't really see very
The
well.
numbers
A
on it.
number. Okay, yeah.
That was your identification.
Oh, it was red. Oh, okay.
You are not a name,
You're
but
a
a number.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
And each different ethnic group was given a different shaped coin. So you're paid by what ethnicity you were, rather than how hard you worked.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, so there was, you know, discrimination in
crazy.
Hawaii at that time.
Wow.
So anyway, that's a little bit about Hawaii.
That's interesting. Wow.
Now the early Japanese that came to the mainland
Yeah.
was the following year.
Uh-huh.
This was 1868, and then a group came to California in 1869. This is called the Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Colony. Now you know where gold was discovered in California when we had the gold rush?
Yeah. San Francisco. Yeah.
No, it wasn't in San Francisco.
Where was it?
San Francisco was a port.
Right.
You know, they came from all over the world to San Francisco
Yeah.
on boats,
Yeah.
ships.
Yeah.
From there, they had to go up the Sacramento River.
Okay.
Okay, up to past Sacramento, in the Sierras.
Oh, Sierras. Oh, that's right.
In the
Yeah.
mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. It's in Coloma.
Coloma.
It's near
Okay.
Placerville. If you know where Placerville
Okay,
is.
uh-huh.
It's up in the Sierras between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Okay. Well, that's where gold was discovered. That started the gold rush.
Wow.
The gold rush in 49. 1849 was the gold rush. And that's when the Chinese arrived.
Yeah.
Chinese arrived during the gold rush. Okay. Well, the Japanese didn't get here. The first group came in 1869, 20 years after the Chinese came. But they were not immigrants.
49.
They were escaping Japan because they were going to get killed
Oh, really?
in that war between the imperial forces. You saw The Last Samurai?
Yeah.
Well, that's when this losing side that
Oh, really?
Tom Cruise was on.
Yeah.
Well, that group escaped here to America.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so that's the Wakamatsu Tin Silk Colony,
Uh-huh.
which is this Wakamatsu Tin Silk Colony. See?
Okay.
So, yeah, so this is in 1869. They went to farm there. They weren't there for the gold. They were going to start a tea and silk colony. But the local white farmers didn't want these Asians living around, in their neighborhood. So they only lasted about 3 years. They diverted the water, so they couldn't water their plants.
Oh my gosh.
Their trees and their vegetables and things. So they only lasted 3 years.
Really?
But a girl died, so she's buried there. So
really?
that's her grave.
Oh, jeez.
So we were able to make that into a state historical park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you ever go up in the Sierras where Sutter's Mill was gold was discovered, you can also visit the site of the first Japanese colony.
Wow.
Okay, that's very interesting.
In fact, one of our volunteers has actually got the tea, some seeds or something from that actual tea, and actually reproduced it or grown those up in Napa
Oh, yeah?
just this past year,
Really?
and he's going to do it again this coming year,
Wow.
and actually make the tea from the original.
Oh,
that
really?
was brought here in 1869.
Wow.
Yeah. Amazing thing.
That is amazing.
Okay, so because the Chinese were here before the Japanese,
Yeah.
we tell a little bit about their story.
Yeah.
They came here, like I said, during the gold rush because China was at that time in a civil war, and their farmers were being taxed heavily by the government. And so they couldn't pay their taxes, so they sent their young men to America to make money to actually help their family in China. But they were not treated very well. There were much discrimination against the Chinese. They didn't want these different, people. So there were many massacres of Chinese in the United States. But when they start building the railroad, they start building the transcontinental railroad during the Civil War in the 1860s. They actually went to China and recruited Chinese to build because they were good workers and they didn't have to pay them very much, and so they were recruited from China. Over 10,000 Chinese were brought to work on the railroad, and over 1,000 died.
Jeez.
Over 1,000 Chinese died building that railroad. And then after the railroads were completed, now they didn't want these Chinese here any longer, right? And so they did everything they can to get rid of them. And so finally in 1882 they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. So from 1882, no more Chinese laborers are allowed in the United States. Okay? Here, Europeans were coming in by the millions.
Right.
But no Chinese
No
were
Chinese,
allowed.
huh?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So the Japanese started arriving after 1885 to fill in that cheap labor. Okay? So that's when they start coming after 1885. Japan finally allowed immigration. But we give a little bit about the background.
Interesting.
Now this whole wall is about the Japanese immigrant story, okay? Including around on this side. This side will tell you a little bit about the type of work that they did. So farming is because at that time, the world was mostly agricultural anyway, so a lot of them were farmers. This is actually my uncle's farm.
Oh, really? Wow.
In fact, we farmed when I was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
4 and 5. We farmed on that land because my father and his 2 brothers were partners until my father got sick, so we moved. But that's my uncle's farm.
Oh, wow.
That's a pea. They're growing peas.
Peas, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
You see the peas hanging there?
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So farming was one major occupation that they did. Although they couldn't own the land, they can't own the land.
Really?
Asians could not own land.
Hmm.
Okay. And then they also worked on the railroad. My grandfather worked on the railroad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my grandfather came in 1903,
Oh, wow.
and the pay was so low in the farm, you know, when they were farming, working as a laborer on the farm. He said his wages were 25 cents a day.
Oh, my gosh.
25. You know, so you can't make a living because that's about equivalent to about $10 a day today.
Wow.
Not $10 an hour, $10 a day.
Jeez.
You know,
Yeah, how can
so
you
you
live?
couldn't make a living. So he went to work for the railroad, and he worked in the railroad for 6 years and saved all his money, and then he was able to buy a farm.
Oh, wow.
So my grandfather started farming in Mountain View.
Oh, Mountain View. Okay.
Which is
Wow.
all Silicon Valley today.
Yeah.
But at that time it was all farm.
Wow.
And then other people got into lumber, working on the west up in Washington and Oregon. There's a lot of lumber that they cut down. And then this other one is showing you fishing. Because a lot of Japanese were fishermen. In fact, you know, Terminal Island. Terminal Island was a Japanese fishing village.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Until the war, and they were the first one that was removed from the
Really?
island. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
So those are some of the early things that they did. Okay, so now the early Japanese who came, like the Chinese before them, were usually single men. Okay, because they came here to work to make money, but they were planning to return to Japan, right? They're gonna get rich and they're gonna go back. But like I said, the wages were so low, they couldn't save enough money to go back. So they decided, well, looks like they're gonna have to stay here. And so if they want to stay here, what do they want to do?
Get married.
Get married, start families, start communities, right? But there were no Japanese women here. And so what did they do? They had their families in Japan find them a wife. Okay, so almost like going on the internet finding a mate, right? But this was a little bit more sophisticated because a family would scrutinize the family, that the prospective family, make sure there's no skeleton, and also to make sure they're in the same social class because at that time it was very social classes. And then when they found a suitable wife, then the two exchanged pictures. Okay, these are picture brides. You heard of picture brides?
Yeah.
Right? So those are picture brides up there. So the man would send his pictures to the lady's family. The ladies had nothing to do with it.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so then the lady's family would now send her pictures to the guy here, and if they agree, they get married by proxy.
Oh.
Okay, so all you had to do is register the lady's name in the family register, in the men's family register, and she's now a member of the family.
Wow.
So this poor girl, she's told to get on a boat and go join your husband and start a new life.
Wow.
I mean, pretty scary. Pretty
that's
scary
pretty
for
scary.
these poor girls, But that's how our community got started, by these picture brides.
Really?
Yeah, so those are some of them arriving. Okay.
Wow.
Now, here you can see Keep California White.
Yeah.
So that's how they campaigned. That's the campaign poster.
Jeez.
James Fagan was the mayor of San Francisco. He got elected to the United States Senate by campaigning to keep California white.
It's crazy.
Now, in the early 1900s, they put Asian students into a separate school. Okay? Because most of the Asians lived in Northern California at that time, until the earthquake, and then they moved south. But at that time, they were mostly up in Northern California. So they were putting Chinese and Japanese students to a separate school. Well, in 1905, when they tried to put 95 Japanese students in San Francisco into a separate school, they complained to the Japanese government, okay? Because the Japanese government had some influence, or they had some respect from Western countries. Well, unfortunately, Chinese did not, because Europeans were colonizing China, right? So they didn't have any pull. They didn't have any, you know. But Japan had just defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. So they had some influence, and so there was a gentleman's agreement. The gentleman's agreement. And one of the provisions of that was that if the United States would not put Japanese students into a separate school, then Japan would not let any more laborers come to the United States. Okay, so that ended Japanese immigration. The Chinese immigration ended in 1882. Japanese immigration ended in 1908. Now there was still a little bit of immigration because they allow families, if the father was here, his family could come. So there was a small amount of immigration. Also, some students were allowed, and some merchants were allowed. But the majority of people who wanted to come were laborers, and they were excluded. So the immigration period for Chinese and Japanese is only about 20 years. That's the period of immigration. Now, for Koreans, there was very few Korean immigration at that time. I worked with a girl. Have you heard the Ons?
Yeah.
Phil On? You know Phil On?
Yeah,
The
I've
movie
heard.
actor?
Yeah.
Well, his sister-in-law, I worked with her
Oh, really?
sister-in-law. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, Philson was one of the brothers.
Oh, yeah.
His wife was, I worked with her
Oh, really?
at Northridge Hospital.
Oh, wow.
But they owned a restaurant in Panorama City, if you know. Moongate?
Moongate, yeah, they did, really?
Remember?
Okay, yeah.
Moongate,
Uh-huh.
Panorama
Oh, wow.
City. The family owned that
Wow.
Chinese restaurant.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were one of the early Koreans that came. Also, Young Oh Kim. You heard of Young Oh
Yeah,
Kim?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a school named after me.
School's named after him.
yeah.
In Koreatown.
Yeah.
So his family was one of the early ones that came. But they associated with the Japanese community because there was no Korean community at that
Right.
time.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
In fact, one of the On brothers, youngest brother,
Uh-huh.
I can't remember his name now, but he associated with us in the San Fernando Valley.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Okay, so anyway, okay, where shall we go? Okay, you know about mochi?
Yeah.
Okay, making mochi?
Yeah.
Well, you know, bringing our culture and traditions with us. So, of course, New Year's, you know, in the old days, only time you made mochi was New Year's, okay, because that's our celebration. So you can see making mochi there.
Wow.
Okay. Now today, of course, you just go to the store and buy it.
Yeah.
But in the old days.
Wow.
So again, I kind of show my history, family histories.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Actually, you know, there is you can go on the ancestry.gov,
Yeah.
ancestry.com.
Yeah.
You get your immigration records. Like this is my grandfather that came in 1903. So it tells you the date he came, the ship he came on,
Oh, wow.
and his home in Japan, the age he was when he came. Okay, and this is actually my father. My father came in 1919, and he was 13 years old,
Wow.
and tells you his mother, address. So you can get that kind of information about your immigration record. Actually, we said for my parents and my father and his brothers brought their parents, which is my grandfather, my grandmother. That's from 1938.
Oh, wow.
They came to visit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is my maternal grandfather.
Okay.
This is. You been to San Francisco?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Palace of Fine Arts.
Palace of Fine Arts, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
You know what that is the remain of?
What is that?
the Panama Pacific Exposition of 1915.
Oh, wow, okay.
The whole marina was part of this exposition they had. When the Panama Canal was open, they had an exposition in San Francisco. But they took everything down, but they kept this one section. Now, during this exposition, my grandfather has sent his second son to the exposition to display our soul man. The soul man is a thin noodles. Thin noodles. Because this is my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, he started this noodle here.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
This is the most famous soul man in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. Even
Wow.
today, you could ask any Japanese that come, they'll say that's the best soul man.
Really?
Okay? You can, in fact, we can buy it at our markets here. But he was the one that started it back in the 1860s.
Wow.
But that's what brought our family to America, was this soul man.
Soul man noodle, yeah.
Because he sent his second, not him, but his son, which is my grandfather, sent his second son to the exposition to display the soul man and to promote the soul man. Okay. Okay, let me see.
Wow, that's a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, it kind of.
Very, very interesting, wow.
Yeah, because you want to know how your family came here, why they came, and
Right,
all that
right.
stuff. We want
Absolutely.
people to know, you know, like your family, for instance. So what do you know about your family?
Not too much. My brother and I were both adopted, so.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but we grew up with a Caucasian family, so.
Oh, I
Yeah, we
see.
don't have a Korean last name. But my wife's family, she's from Korea, Korea, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but since she's from Korea, so how did you meet her?
Well, I was wanting to learn Korean, so she was my Korean teacher at first.
Oh, yeah?
But that didn't go very well.
It's hard to learn the language.
Yeah, I was too distracted, so.
But anyway, we want young people to know their family's history.
Yeah.
And like I said, what made them come to America? What were
Right.
they doing, and what made them come to America, and the hardships that they faced when they
Yeah.
got here. You know, we want them to know those things.
This is really important,
Because
yeah.
young people, to be able to appreciate what they have,
Yeah.
they have to know the hardships that their ancestors had to go through. So that's
Yeah.
what we want people to learn.
That's great, that's awesome.
So here's a Buddhist shrine that,
Oh, wow.
you know,
Uh-huh.
most Japanese who came were Buddhist, a few Christians, but when they came to America, you know, many of them became Christians. But, you know, in Japan, you don't have Sunday schools or Sunday services, you know, you just, you have a shrine, usually it's a great big shrine in your living room, actually. And whenever you don't go to a church or a temple, the priest comes to your house whenever there's a service, you know, if there's a death in the family or whatever, the priest comes to your house, so you have your own shrine, family shrine. But when they came to America, they changed the whole structure and copied the Christian church. So there's Sunday schools and Sunday services.
Yeah.
So this is building communities, and about businesses. Now this shows you some of the discriminatory laws that were passed against Asians, and it started when this country was first founded. You know, when the United States was first founded, after the War of Independence, they had the first Congress established the Constitution. They passed the first Immigration and Naturalization Acts. Well, in the Naturalization Act in 1790, only free whites could become naturalized American citizens. So unless you're a European, you cannot become a naturalized citizen, right? And then after the Civil War, they allowed African Americans to become naturalized citizens. So there was since Asians could not become naturalized citizens, California was the first state that passed the alien land law. Okay? The alien land law said that if you're ineligible for naturalization, you cannot own land or property. Okay? So Asians could not own property. However, some of the people got around that law. So how do they get around that law?
Yep.
Kids, right?
Kids, yeah.
The children are born here, they're citizens, so they brought property under the children's name. So California said, well, we can't let this happen, we're gonna have to do something about that. So what did they do? They passed another law in 1920 that says you have to be an adult. You can't buy property if you're a child.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, they tried everything they can to prevent Asians from becoming a part of the community. And then in 1920, they wouldn't allow any more picture brides.
No more,
No
huh?
more picture brides.
Wow.
So you have to go to Japan and get married and bring your wife.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Well, people couldn't afford that, right?
Yeah.
It's too expensive. You couldn't. Yeah. So that cut down on more immigration. And then in 1922, they passed the Cable Act. Now, the Cable Act said even if you're an American citizen, if you married a non-citizen, you lost your citizenship.
Really? Oh, geez.
Okay?
That's
You
crazy.
could actually lose your citizenship. That's what happened to my mother.
Really?
My
Oh,
mother
wow.
was born here, but my father was born in Japan. So when she married my father, she lost her American citizenship.
Really?
And she can't get it back
Wow.
because she's ineligible for naturalization.
Yeah.
So she has no citizenship now.
That's terrible.
Well, fortunately, in 1936, they rescinded that law. So my mother was able to get naturalized. And then finally, they passed the law in 1924, the Asian Exclusion Act. Okay, so now no more immigration from Asia. Now this includes Asian Indians.
Wow.
Filipino,
Yeah.
you know, not just Japanese and Chinese. They included all Asians.
Wow.
1924.
Wow.
Now I had two uncles who were unmarried, and so 1924 you couldn't get married anymore. You couldn't bring any wives from Japan. Well, my uncle, one was working for a Japanese restaurant in Oakland. And the owner of this restaurant had a friend in Tokyo whose daughter had just graduated nursing school. So he arranged it for my uncle to meet her in Tokyo, get married. Well, they had 1 hour to make up their mind. 1 hour to make up their mind, but she agreed. So he went to their home and got married and brought her to the United States.
Wow.
And my other uncle married a second cousin.
Oh, wow.
Now, she didn't know him personally, but she said that since it was a family member, she agreed. Okay, she was 16
Really?
when she got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So those are just examples.
Wow.
But you know, 1924 it ended all immigration.
Immigration, wow.
Now, there was also ways to keep you out of the neighborhood by intimidation.
Yeah.
So here, Japs keep moving. This is a white man's neighborhood. That was
Jeez.
Hollywood, 1920s.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And people even just wore buttons, Jap hunting license.
Oh,
So
God.
those are all
Terrible.
intimidation,
Yeah.
scare you.
Yeah.
But despite all that type of discriminatory acts, they persevered. You know, they came here to make a living, and they try to be good citizens, and they wanted to be a part of the community. So they persevered, and some of them got into business, some got into professions, and they even got into the arts.
Wow.
So that's what this whole was about.
That's really interesting. Wow.
Now this other side is about the second generation. Now, we use generational terms,
Yeah.
right? Nisei.
Nisei.
The Nisei is the immigrant. Nisei is the first generation born in America. That's second generation. The third generation, sansei.
Sansei.
See, I'm a sansei. I'm
Sansei.
a third generation.
Third generation.
Okay. So, for instance, this picture that you might see here. This is the Issei.
You say?
They
Yeah.
came to America just like many other different people that came to America for a better life, more opportunities, right? So that's what they came for. But because of all the discrimination they faced, they said, you know, we're putting our future in doing everything for the children, right? So they, you know, somehow was able to get them to go to college, get good grades, go to school, and get a good education, and you're going to get good jobs, right? So that's what the Nisei did. So this is in the 20s and 30s. So when they finally got out of college, okay, they started looking for a job. No one's going to hire Japanese. Okay, they wouldn't hire Asians. So even with the college education, they just work in their family grocery stores or back on the family farm. But because they had that education, when the opportunity finally started to open up, then they were qualified, and so they would start to get those jobs. Okay. Now, did you go to where did you go to school? You went to college?
Yeah, I went to Los Angeles City College.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when I went to Berkeley, I went to University of California, Berkeley, back in '49. Okay, they discriminated.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
They limited the number of Asians in the class. This is a reverse of affirmative action.
Right, yeah, wow.
Affirmative action.
That's
Okay,
crazy.
Yeah, instead of admitting people,
They wouldn't
they limited the number of Asians in the class. But that's what happened to me when I was
Wow.
at Berkeley.
At Berkeley, that's terrible.
So, you know, even after I graduated college too, I graduated in '54.
Oh, you did? Okay.
There was no anti-discrimination laws at that time.
Right.
So I couldn't get a job. No one's
Really?
going to hire Japanese
Right.
or Asians, you know.
Wow.
I had a hard time finding a job.
Did you?
Yeah.
So
Now
did you work with
here
your family? You work with your family then?
My family.
Did you go work with your family then? Since you weren't able to get a job? You said you had a...
I was not married then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Well, I wasn't living up in San Francisco. I couldn't get a job. I finally got a job in San Mateo.
Oh, okay.
I drove from San Francisco to San Mateo every day.
Oh, wow.
스쿨이다 스쿨.
Wow.
클래스룸.
And then you went to Korea for the war, huh?
Yeah, I got drafted after I got out of college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this is a Japanese classroom.
Oh,
Because
wow.
before the war, we all went to Japanese school. So why do you think we were, you know, all these communities that we have, we always had a Japanese school. And our parents or, you know, not my parents, but because I was third generation, but the second generations were pressured into going to a Japanese school. So why did they do that?
Keep the culture.
Yeah, retain the culture and know the language, because it was easier for us to learn Japanese than for the Iseis to learn English, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're an adult, it's hard to learn language.
Oh, yeah.
But kids could pick it up easy. So we were forced into Japanese school. And so that was one reason, retaining culture and knowing your traditions. But there was another reason, and that was because they felt that we can't find jobs, we can't get jobs, so we may have to go to Japan to get
Oh, I
jobs.
see. Gotcha.
Now, next street over is called John Iso Street, if you notice.
Yeah.
San Pedro.
Yeah.
San Pedro between First and Temple is John Iso Street, Judge John Iso Street. You have any idea why that was named after Judge John Iso?
No idea.
Two reasons. One was that he was the first Japanese American appointed a judge in,
Oh, really?
in
Oh, wow.
LA. This was back in the 40s.
Over there.
What?
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
This is
Whatever.
something.
Oh,
Recognize?
yeah, no, I saw.
What was that?
I know. It's my son, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And the second reason was, knowing that the war was coming, the Army established a language school in the Presidio of San Francisco, okay, to teach Japanese to American soldiers. Judge John Iso, he graduated Hollywood High School back in the early 20s. And then Well, he was the valedictorian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
However,
Yeah.
the parents of the white students said no Asian is going to be a valedictorian
Oh, really?
at that school. Yeah. And then also he was the best debater. They had a debating club,
Oh, really?
and he was the best debater.
Wow.
And the school was invited to Washington D.C. for a contest, but he was not allowed to go.
Oh.
So he faced all this discrimination in high school, but he went to Harvard Law School. He graduated Harvard Law School, came back to California to practice law. Well, no firm will hire him. No firm will hire him. So he couldn't get a job. So he went to Japan, went to Chuo University, and I don't know what he studied there, but he was finally hired by a British firm in Manchuria.
Oh, wow.
And so he was there till about 1939, I guess it was. And he came back to California, and he was drafted. And and then he was sent to the Presidio of San Francisco, and he was told that he was going to be the chief instructor for the language school. So if you go down to the marina, well, the Presidio, it's actually that last road next to the bay there, in the Presidio, Building 640. It was a small hangar for a single engine plane that they had there. So he was given this little hangar and told that he was going to start a language school there. He had nothing, just a bunch of crates and anyway. And then of course when he started this language school, most Japanese American because they already knew Japanese.
Yeah.
And then when so this is about second generation. So you can see these are dances and things that Nisei did just like any other American, right?
Yeah.
So finally, December 7th,
That was Kevin,
1941,
your brother.
Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and we got into World War II. Now, we were taught in school that this was a sneak attack and surprise attack by Japan. Well, it's not all true. Okay? Because we knew we were going to be going to war with Japan. For years, they were prepared for this. In fact, what they did was they had FBI spying on the Japanese American community.
Oh, really?
From the 1930s, FBI was spying on our community.
Oh, my gosh.
They were making a list of all our community leaders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
They were trying to determine whether the Japanese community would be loyal to Japan or the United States when the war came.
Oh, I see.
And the FBI had repeatedly told the president that there's no problem with the Japanese community.
Right.
We're a very small minority community.
Yeah.
And they said, don't worry about it. I mean, so they were told that. But, and also by, what was I going to say? Well, anyway, the U.S. had already broken the Japanese diplomatic code, and the military code, so they knew even when the attack was coming.
Right.
But the reason, well, the whole thing was, if you read some books that was written, Japan was provoked into starting the war.
Well, they were really? Okay.
Yeah, but I won't go into all that theory because it's. But there has been books written on
Really?
how
Oh, wow.
provoked.
Interesting.
But in preparation for this war, though, the U.S. sent the FBI's into the Japanese community, and they had already told the president there's no problem with the Japanese community. But when war was imminent, they sent another special agent, Curtis Munson, to verify the FBI report.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Wow.
he came to the West Coast and to Hawaii and to verify the FBI report. And he reported back to the president in November 1941, which is 1 month before Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And told the president that the FBI reports are correct. There's no problem with the Japanese community.
Wow.
But when Pearl Harbor happened, all those reports were disregarded.
Wow.
Because now the people, the West Coast people who were anti-Asian at that time, they pressured the politicians to get rid of the Japanese.
Really? Wow.
So
It's all
that's,
politics, huh?
it
Interesting.
was politics.
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
at that time, before the war, Japanese farmers were doing 40% of the produce.
Really?
So a lot of the farmers wanted to get rid of the Japanese, right?
Oh, I see.
Benefit financially.
Yeah. Gotcha. Interesting.
So what did it take to get rid of the Japanese?
Start a war.
No, but what was the authority that allowed
Oh, the
allowed-
government, to turn the government on them.
Okay, so what was the official thing that?
The Exclusion Act. The
But
intern them. Internment camps.
Yeah, but who authorized that? How did it happen?
The FBI. the Department of Justice.
president.
The president. Yeah, president.
President signed an
President
executive
Truman
order.
or President Roosevelt. Yeah.
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. Yeah. That's
Issued
right.
an executive order.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
Yeah, that's all it took was executive
was
order.
an executive
Just like
order.
Trump's doing now today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
So
repeating
this-
history a little
so
bit.
this is a lesson because that history is repeating itself for other minorities.
Yep.
You know.
You're absolutely right. It's terrible.
But that's all it took was the president issued an executive order.
Exactly. You're right.
Executive order 9066. That's the specific
9066,
one.
huh? Oh my gosh.
So as soon as that was signed,
Mm-hmm.
then the army started issuing the exclusion orders.
Oh, okay.
So this is the exclusion orders.
Wow.
Instructions to all persons Japanese ancestry, signed by John DeWitt.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you lived in this area, you were to report here on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so you'll see here, all persons of Japanese ancestry, both aliens and non-aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a non-alien?
Yeah, a citizen, in other words, you're saying, yeah.
But why did they put citizen here?
Because that would be like you can sue the government for that.
It'd be unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, yeah, exactly,
Okay, this is
unconstitutional.
unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Because citizens have rights.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So they put non-aliens, huh?
So we're not even
Jeez.
citizens, we're non-aliens.
That's crazy.
So now, we were at war with Germany and Italy also.
Mm-hmm.
But Germans and Italians were not put in concentration camp. Only persons of Japanese ancestry. And we're a very small minority.
Mm-hmm.
So why was it only Japanese? Because if they were worried about sabotage or espionage, who could do it better? Germans or Japanese?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
The Germans,
Germans,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Because they can just sneak in any place.
Yeah.
If a Japanese
Well, the
started
Italians,
doing
yeah.
that, they'll be caught right
Oh,
away.
yeah, exactly.
So this is all racial.
Propaganda,
It's
yeah, all
all
racial, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
so this is showing you that we could only take what we can carry.
Right. Wow. This is awesome.
What did you choose to take with you?
Excuse me?
What kind of thing did you choose?
Well, you can only carry a suitcase.
Clothes?
Yeah, so primarily clothes, but you don't know what kind of weather you're going to be in. You know, and some of the precious things that you might have, you want to take with you.
Yeah.
Now this is right across the street. This is the temple right.
That's a temple right across the street? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's when they were told to assemble here.
Wow.
And then they were put on the buses. And you know, we were sent to a temporary camp for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't wait those 3 months before the permanent camps were built.
Oh, wow.
So they had to spend millions of dollars to convert all these racetracks and fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
They had to convert all those into temporary camps.
Oh, wow.
They had to spend millions of dollars
Yeah.
to do that.
Crazy.
Well, if they waited 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have been sent to a permanent camp directly.
Wow.
But they had to get rid of us so quickly.
Yeah. It's terrible.
They spend millions of dollars extra, which is
Jeez.
unnecessary.
That's terrible.
Okay? Yeah. But anyway, so this is about
Wow.
the temporary camps where we've been sent. So here is Santa Anita Racetrack.
Yeah, Santa Anita, yeah.
And then Pomona Fairgrounds.
Pomona Fair. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, we got some more in here, huh?
This is the Warriors.
Well, I grew up with I think sanseis or yonseis, the haras. They're probably their grandparents were processed through this.
If they lived on Bainbridge Island.
No, they lived in. I don't. Well, they're farmers, so I don't know. I never talked to
They
them
were all
about that.
farmers.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
all
Oh,
farmers.
they're farmers. Yeah, they're more like Eastern Washington, so I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know where they went to, but I didn't really talk to them about that.
Well, if they were further east, like Spokane, out
Yeah,
that way,
yeah.
they were not sent to a camp.
Oh, they weren't sent to camp. They were allowed to stay.
Yeah, I think it goes as far as Yakima. I
Really?
think Yakima was sent to a camp, but I don't think.
But the people that lived on the eastern state say
No, they didn't have to go.
they have to, oh
Yeah.
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But you see them wearing those tags with the name,
Yeah.
numbers on them?
Right, right.
Okay. So the whole community, there were 254 individuals that was taken away from the camp.
Wow.
There's a big monument there. I don't know if you saw it when you went to Bainbridge Island.
No, I didn't get off. We just went to the
Oh.
there and then came back.
Yeah.
We should have gone
At
there.
the site here where this pier used to be, there's a great big monument there.
Uh-huh.
It's 254 feet long, 1 foot for every person.
Wow.
And they list the name and age of everybody that were
Really?
taken. Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty amazing.
Now, this picture here is
Yeah.
out in the desert.
Oh, is it?
someplace,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So we were sent from our temporary camp to our permanent camp. So we were put on a train. So I was in a temporary camp in Merced in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
And we were told to get on a train. So we got on a train and we traveled for 2 days. We ended up somewhere out in the desert.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
But, you know, we were kids, so
Yeah.
we were probably running up and down these trains. But
Yeah.
after 2 days, you get pretty restless.
Oh yeah.
So they stopped the train, let us out.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got off the train, we were surrounded by machine gun.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You remember that, huh?
Oh yeah, because I thought
It's very
they were gonna kill
intimidating.
us. I thought
Really-
they were going to kill us.
Like the Jews in yeah. Oh wow.
But, so I thought they were going to kill us, but of course that didn't happen. We were put back on the train.
Yeah.
And we traveled for another whole day, and I ended up in southeastern Colorado.
Wow.
But these are all the process of when we were being sent to the camps.
Oh my gosh.
Now even this guy here,
Who's that?
he's a sailor.
Oh, is he?
He served in the United States Navy in the First World War.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but because he's Japanese American, he was sent to the concentration camp in World War II. So he wore his uniform and went to camp.
Oh my God. That's crazy. That's like the Mexican Americans that served in the Iraq War. They're being deported. They're veterans, you know. That's crazy.
That's Santa Anita Racetrack. So they built the guard tower and the bleachers.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's Santa Anita Racetrack.
Yeah, soldiers up there with machine gun.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So these are the 10 camps that the War Relocation Authority.
Oh, those are the 10
camps.
camps.
Yeah.
So is Amache where you're at, huh?
That was Amache here in
Yeah.
Colorado, the Idaho, this
Idaho.
is in Utah.
Utah.
These are 2 in Arkansas.
Uh huh.
That
Oh, Arkansas, really?
yeah, U.S. Government has some swampland there,
Uh-huh.
so they drained the swamps and built 2 camps.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Heart Mountain, that's where that barrack came from there. These 2 are in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
It's actually on Indian reservation.
Wow.
Tule Lakes in Northern California and Manzanar in
Manzanar.
Owens Valley.
Oh, Mansour, okay.
Now the community leaders that were taken away were sent to a separate camp which was run by the Justice Department. So these were in New Mexico, primarily New Mexico and North Dakota.
Okay. Wow. 700,000. Wow. That guy's pretty old.
Now, like I told you earlier, the FBI was in our midst. So as soon as war started, they took the community leaders and they were sent to the Justice Department camp. So that was a period of fear, anxiety, because the community didn't know why our neighbors were being picked up by the FBI, right?
Right.
So, you know, the husband, the wives would be worried that their husband might be taken, or your father's going to be taken.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of worry because we didn't know why these people were being taken away. So people just destroyed anything to do with Japan.
Yeah.
Okay, so letters from relatives
Yeah.
or pictures of relatives
That's
or
terrible.
any mementos that they got from Japan.
Yeah. Everything was destroyed.
Destroyed, yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Now my father had a real big collection of Japanese music. You know, these 45 records. Well, she was worried that because my father liked Japanese music, that they're gonna come and arrest him. So she destroyed all his records.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's the type of.
That's terrible.
That's
Wow.
the type of fear that they had at that time.
Wow.
So these are the temporary camps that we were sent to, and these are the permanent camps.
Okay.
Now, there were also isolation centers because troublemakers in the camp, if they complain
Yeah.
and you know, make trouble to the authorities, they were sent to an isolation camp.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So these are the major camps.
Oh, they're all over the United States, huh?
So everybody in the West Coast here, from Alaska down to part of Arizona,
They'd go
were
down
sent to
there,
these
huh?
camps.
Wow.
Now, what most people don't know about the Latin American Japanese that was brought to Crystal City, Texas.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah? They were
you
coming...
ever heard about them?
No.
Okay. So why did the United States bring Latin American Japanese?
Because they were feared of them being an enemy.
Well, there were Americans during the war that wanted to return. These are civilians, not,
Okay.
not soldiers.
Okay.
But there were civilians that wanted to return to the United States. So they needed the bodies to exchange. And they couldn't use us, because we're Americans.
Right.
So they used Latin American Japanese.
Oh, really? Oh, my
Because they're
God.
not Americans, right?
Right.
So they used them as an exchange.
Oh.
My sister-in-law is a Peruvian Japanese.
Oh, really? Oh,
Her
wow.
father was a very prominent businessman in Lima, Peru.
Oh, yeah?
They owned a department store and several other businesses.
Oh, wow.
So the U.S. agent went and kidnapped them. Took him to Panama.
Yeah.
And he was forced to work in a road gang for
Wow.
6 months.
Really?
Then they brought him to Crystal City, Texas, and the family was notified that they're going to send him to Japan so the family can come and join them. Now the Peruvian authority confiscated all their businesses, the big house that they had,
Wow.
and so they decided that they'll join their father in Crystal City. And out of the 2,400 Latin American Japanese that was brought, 1,000 was sent to Japan.
Oh, really?
2 boatloads were sent to Japan.
Wow.
Well, fortunately, my sister-in-law, their family was not sent to Japan.
Oh, really?
But after the war ended, they wanted to go back to Peru.
Oh, yeah? Are you leaving right now? Yeah. Okay. Is Kevin gonna stay around or what? We left? Oh. Okay. Sorry.
Right, running out of time.
Yeah, well, my brother just... So that's it? You're going back home then?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
get my Dalmatian now.
All right.
I take too long.
No, that's okay. How much more longer?
Well, I'll have to cut it shorter.
Okay, sorry. That's okay. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Because I take 2 hours.
Oh, do you really? Oh, wow.
Longer maybe if I
yeah.
go into more details.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome.
But it's hard to make it short because I have so much information I want to include, you know.
Exactly. You got a lot of information.
Yeah, so it's very hard. Because I have a lot of family stories to tell.
Yeah, you
so
do.
it
That's
makes
very
it-
good.
makes it
Oh,
very,
absolutely. So your sister-in-law's family was they didn't get sent back to Japan.
No,
They were staying
they
in
were
Peru.
not sent. But then when the war ended, they want to go back to Peru because they're Peruvian citizens. But Peru said, no, you can't come back. Because we got rid of you once, we don't want you coming back. And the U.S. government said, well, you can't stay here. You're illegals. Although they took their papers and brought them there. Well, so they went to court. And they won their case, so they were able to remain in the United States.
Oh, wow, that's good. Good for them.
So again, the U.S. government used these euphemism, using nice words, you know, to smooth
Evacuation,
over bad words.
relocation.
Like evacuation, you know, we were evacuated. Okay. Well, we were forced out.
Yeah.
We weren't evacuated. We were forced removal. And then they used non-aliens for citizens, relocation center for concentration camp. So the government used a lot of nice terms.
Wow.
Okay, so I'll skip a few things.
Okay.
Now about the Japanese in Hawaii. They were not in a concentration camp. Okay. Now, after Pearl Harbor, which is in Hawaii, you would think that the Japanese in Hawaii would be the first one to be put into concentration camp.
Yeah.
Not those of us thousands of miles away. So why would the Japanese in Hawaii put into concentration camp?
Why were they put in? Why weren't they?
Weren't they?
Because they needed their labor, right?
There are 2 reasons why. One was that 40% of the population were of Japanese ancestry, so they couldn't very well put them all in concentration camp. Otherwise, the whole economy would have collapsed in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were the major labor force. They owned most of the businesses. But there was a second reason. General Emmons, the military commander in Hawaii, said it's not necessary because he said these are citizens, American citizens. We treat them like any other American citizen. But here on the West Coast, General John D. was the Southern racist, so he was glad to get rid of the Japanese. And besides, he was being pressured by the local white population. Okay, so anyway, that's about Hawaii.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, when we come over here, these are some of the voices. These are reactions when we were being sent to the camps. Voice of cooperation. So most of us cooperated and went quietly. We didn't make a, big fuss over it. We couldn't anyway because we were such a small minority, and they had the army coming after us. So, but these are voices that challenge. So these three men actually challenged the government and went to court. Because of the unconstitutional act. But it was wartime, so they lost in 1944, sent to prison for disobeying. But 40 years later, in 1983, we were able to show that the government had lied and withheld information, which would have proven that the whole process was unconstitutional. So Gordon Hirabayashi was a student at the University of Washington. Fred Korematsu was a student at was a shipyard worker in Oakland, and Minoru Yasui practiced an attorney in Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
So January 30th is Fred Korematsu's birthday. So in California, it's Fred Korematsu Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But these three men challenged the government and were willing to go to prison. Now the lady there, Miss Endo, when she was sent to the camp, she filed a writ of habeas corpus, stating that they can't imprison us indefinitely unless they charge us with a crime that we've committed. And since none of us have been charged with a crime, she says you can't keep us in prison. So her case went before the Supreme Court, and December of 1944, the court ruled in her favor. So they had to open the camps and let us return home. However, it was still very hostile because the war was still going on in 45. So very few people returned home because some of them were shot, some of them were beaten up.
Wow.
And others had their house burned down. But out of the camps, many people went back east, and others had to stay in the camp because they had no place to go. But these are the people who challenged. And I'm going to skip a few of these things here.
Yeah, a lot of good letters.
Voice of cooperation, voice of friendship.
Okay.
Now, there were very few people who came to our aid. There were sporadic, there were groups that tried to convince the rest of the country that this was unconstitutional and things like that. But there were fragments. There were no major organization except the Quakers. Quakers are the only national organization that helped us throughout the whole process.
Wow.
But there were many individuals that helped us. There were individual churches that helped us. So we just list a few here, like Clara Breed. She was a librarian in San Diego. So when her Japanese American students were sent to the camp, she gave them postcards and told them to write to her and tell her what was happening. And she would give speeches, or she would write articles condemning the government for depriving citizens of their constitutional rights. So we have some of the letters here that the students wrote to Clara Breed, telling what was happening, and also asking for school supplies or sundry items or magazines. So just some letters. She saved all the letters.
That's pretty cool.
Wayne Collins was a lawyer for the ACLU. The only chapter of the ACLU that helped us was the Northern California chapter. The national organization did not help us. And the reason for that was the president of the organization was the friend of the president. So he didn't want to embarrass the president, President Roosevelt.
I see.
But Wayne Collins helped individuals, including my sister-in-law, their family. Ralph Lazo was a Mexican-American student. He was going to Belmont High School here in downtown Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
So when his Japanese-American classmate was sent to Manzanar, he said, this is wrong. He said, these are American just like I am. So if they're going to have to go, I'm going to go with them. So Ralph Lazo, a high school student, went to the concentration camp and spent 3 years there.
Really? Wow. It's amazing.
Voluntarily, yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. From Belmont, huh?
You can see this is a Navy Pico.
Yeah.
Because people from Southern California that went to, like in Hard Mountain, Wyoming, they didn't have the proper clothes.
Right.
So the Army issued these Navy Picos. So this one was modified by the mother for the daughter.
Oh, okay. Wow.
This is actually home movies that was taken in the camp.
Oh, really?
We were allowed to have cameras.
Okay.
So this is actually a USO. USO is a place where they entertain servicemen. So every city used to have a USO. So we had one in the camp for Japanese American soldiers who were returning. This particular parade is for the sergeant. What's his name?
Sergeant Kuroki?
Kuroki. Yeah.
Wow.
He was born in Nebraska,
Oh, yeah?
and when he graduated, some of his classmates wanted to join the Air Force. There was an Army Air Force at that time. Well, they wouldn't take a Japanese American in the Air Force. But finally, after trying different recruiting stations, he was finally accepted. So he flew something like 50 missions over Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he came home on leave, and the Army used him as a recruiting tool. So
Wow.
he was sent to these camps to recruit people to join the Army. So that's what's happening here.
Interesting. Wow, wow.
And then he served in Pacific. He flew over Tokyo.
Oh, he did? Oh, wow. Wow, I'm Tokyo, huh?
Now this is about the 442nd Regimental Combat Team.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's all Japanese American unit.
Yeah. Cool.
They were the most decorated unit in United States military history.
Wow.
For their size and length of service.
Uh-huh.
They suffered over 300% casualty.
Wow.
Now this board is from Amache, my camp. So before they closed the camp, they put the names of everybody who died in the camp.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
you
wow.
see 4 boards with names of the people who died. Now these are all the soldiers who were killed from this camp. Okay, so my cousin's one of them. His name's right there. This is my cousin's name.
Oh, wow. It's right there, huh?
Young O Kim. That's
There
Young
is?
O Kim.
Oh, is that him right there?
That's him right
Oh,
there.
wow.
Okay, he's with the general, Mark Clark. They're reviewing the troops.
Really?
And so he's an officer, so he's reviewing the troops.
Wow.
Now you know the story about Young O Kim?
No.
Now Japanese Americans could not become an officer when the war started. Okay, even when the 442 was formed. They had mostly white officers. Well, Young O Kim, a Korean, he could become an officer. So he went to OCS, you know OCS,
Yeah.
Officers Candidate School.
Yeah.
And when he got his bars, he was assigned to the 442 at Camp Shelby, Mississippi.
Okay.
Well, the colonel that had the post there, said, well, you know, there must be some mistake here. You know, this is a Japanese American unit, and you're a Korean American, so you know, Korea and Japan are our enemies. So he says, you know, I'll transfer you to another unit. Well, Young O Kim said, no. He said, you know, we're both Americans. We're fighting the same war.
Right.
So I'm going to stay with the 442. And so that's how he became a very important part of the 442.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Interesting. Huh.
So he was responsible for the Go for Broke.
Go for broke,
you know,
yeah. Okay.
the monument,
Yeah.
and the museum, because the veterans were instrumental with the community business people. They got together and they were able to establish this museum.
Wow.
So he was part of the group.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the Congressional Medal of Honor, so that's
Wow.
the highest medal that you can win.
Yeah.
Now, so that was, if you go on the 405 by the by the airport,
Yeah.
the 105 there, you'll see a sign. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It'll say Sadawis Monomori, World War II, MOH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's him, huh?
Named after him. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So 21 Japanese American won the Congressional Medal of Honor. during
Oh, really?
World War II.
Wow.
So this is where they fought.
Yeah.
All of Italy, all of Italy and part of France. So those are the major campaigns they fought. Also, freeing Dachau. Dachau was a Nazi death camp. A series of death camps that they had in Germany. And the 442, they had an artillery unit, the 522nd Field Artillery. So after they freed the Lost Battalion, the Texas Lost Battalion here, the infantry went to Italy in the Gothic line up there, and the artillery went to Germany here, and they were the one that opened the gates to Dachau.
Oh, wow.
But they were never given credit because they were told to just wait for the white units to come and get their pictures taken. Okay, but they're the one that opened the gates to Dachau. Now you know about the Texas Lost Battalion? This picture here and that picture there is when they rescued the Texans.
Really?
Okay, what happened was this general, this Texas division, 20,000 men. Okay, division had 20,000 men. The 442 only has 5,000 at maximum speed. Well, this General Dahlquist of the Texas division was ambitious. He wanted to get another star up here. So he pushed his men and they got trapped in that forest there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's the Vosges Forest, which is the entrance to Germany. So it's very well fortified by the Germans. And so this battalion of Texans got trapped. And so he has 20,000 men, so he tried to rescue his men. Couldn't do it. The Germans were too tough there. And it was all forest, you can't get tanks in there. So he got trapped and couldn't get his men out, even with his 20,000 men. So he couldn't risk losing any more men because he couldn't go back to Texas and explain how he lost all his men. So he put the 442 Japanese Americans in there.
Wow.
They're expendable.
Yeah.
He told them, you have to rescue my men at all costs.
Oh, wow.
So it took 5 days and 5 nights fighting inch by inch through that forest. Finally, they rescued those Texans.
Really?
There were 211 Texans that was left. But to free those 211 Texans, the 442 lost 800.
Wow.
But he was so gratified that these Texans were saved that he told the colonel of the 442, I wanted all your men out there in the parade ground, and I'm going to give them a big speech and thank them for their heroic efforts. So they're lined up there. Okay, they're not very happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when he saw those stragglers, he told the colonel of the 442, Colonel, I told you I wanted all your men out there.
Yeah.
I didn't want just these few stragglers.
Yeah.
I didn't get permission to get passes. Well, the colonel finally replied, sir, that is all I have left. Yeah, so that's why
Wow.
I'm very happy.
Yeah. They lost a lot of lives.
Now, this is about the MIS, the Military Intelligence Service that I told you earlier about.
Yeah.
About John Iso. So this is the Willoughby, who said they saved 1 million lives and shortened war by 2 years.
Wow.
Now those that went into military intelligence, their duties were to interrogate Japanese prisoners. And so they were at all the invasion of those islands, so they would be there. They needed to get prisoners as soon as possible to get information. So they were in all the invasions. and they translated millions of pages of captured documents, and they also monitored Japanese broadcasts. So so they played a key role.
Interesting.
That picture there is when they were Merle's Marauders. I don't know if you ever heard of the Merle's Marauders, but they went behind Japanese lines in Burma, disrupting Japanese supply routes in Burma. And they're in such close proximity to the enemy that they actually gave command to the Japanese troops.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so anyway, this is now after the war, returning home.
Yeah.
It was very difficult when the camps were closed. They, if you didn't have a place to go, you were just kicked out and sent back to wherever you came from. So,
Yeah.
and we were not wanted. It was very hostile. No Japs wanted. So it was a very difficult time coming back. You couldn't get jobs. You couldn't get housing. People didn't own property, so they had no place to come. They had to convert the temples into housing. They had some YMCA's that was opened up. They had to set up trailer parks.
Wow.
In San Francisco, they used the barracks that the shipyard workers used to live in. They were converted. So anyway, it's a very difficult time.
Yeah.
You can see some of the people who owned property. Their places were broken into. People stole whatever they wanted,
Yeah,
and
that's
they
true.
just trashed the place.
That's terrible.
In my grandfather's place, everything was burned
Was
down.
it?
Yeah, it was burned down. Okay, so anyway, it took several years before we were able to get reestablished. Now, a lot of people left the camp and went back east, so like Chicago, a lot of people went back there. This was Seabrook Farms in New Jersey, where they had a farm for this frozen food plant. So a lot of Japanese were hired there. Now you can see these are actually leave permits. When we left the camp, we're citizens, yet we had to have a
Permit. That's crazy. Wow.
Now, as far as citizenship was concerned for the immigrants, 1943, Chinese were able to become citizens. Okay, because because they were allies. So Chinese were able to become citizens in 1943. In 1946, the Filipinos and Asian Indians were able to become citizens. But it wasn't until 1952 that Japanese and other Asians were able to become citizens. And the reason, we had a campaign for these things. And we campaigned, and the primary reason why we got that passed in 52 was the story of the 442. When that became public, then the movie came out, Go for Broke, the
Go
story
for
of the
broke.
442.
Oh, really?
Remember Van Johnson?
Yeah.
Well, he's in that movie as,
Oh, is he?
as the white officer
Oh.
of the
Wow.
442. So,
Wow.
so when the story finally came out, then they couldn't deny us equal rights. So these are some citizenship papers.
One of those naturalizations. Huh?
Yeah.
I have one that looks like that.
Now, a lot of the Hawaii, a little bit about Hawaii, because Hawaii previously was kind of run by the plantation owners and a few of the big companies. But when the veterans came back, they got into unions and they got into politics, and it changed the whole climate of Hawaii, and so it became, a democratic state. Yeah, and the state became a state in '59.
Yeah.
Now, Patsy Mink, Patsy Takemoto Mink, a congresswoman, she's the one that was responsible for Title IX.
Oh, was she? Oh, wow.
Title IX giving women equal access. It was because of her. In the '70s, she had that passed through Congress.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we're now participating in civil rights.
Yeah, civil rights, yeah.
Now, this is a model Manzanar.
Oh, wow.
To give you an idea of what the camp looked like. It's a National Historic Site today. So it's run by the National Park Services. all the buildings are gone, but they kept this auditorium, so that's the museum there.
Oh, is it?
It's a museum there. This is Highway 395 that takes you from Los Angeles to Mammoth. So it's on the way to Mammoth. And those two guardhouses at the entrance are still there also, stone guardhouse. And there's a cemetery, which is way in the bottom there. That's the cemetery. So there's a pilgrimage in April. In April, there's a pilgrimage. So we get about 1,000 people come to the pilgrimage. So these are the blocks. Now, Manzanar, their barracks are shorter and only had 4 units to each barrack. So they have 14 barracks to a block. Ours had longer, 6 units, so we had 12 barracks. But these 2 center buildings are the latrine. The larger one is a shower. And this is the mess hall on the end there, that's the mess hall. So this is 1 mile square and housed about 10,000 people.
Wow. Pretty amazing, wow.
So this is when we were campaigning to get an apology from the government. But we started in 1970, early 1970s. We didn't know exactly how we were going to do that, but by then we had 4 members in Congress, 2 senators and 2 congressmen. So they suggested that we pass a law and establish a commission and have the commission study why we were sent to the camps. So we campaigned and got this law passed. We had a lot of help from many minority groups, civil rights organizations, religious organizations, and we got this passed through Congress in 1980.
Wow.
And established this Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians Act. And they studied for 3.5 years. And so they had hearings throughout the country to hear the stories of what happened and how we suffered and so forth. And they came up with the conclusion that we were sent to the camps for 3 basic reasons. Number 1 was hysteria. People were afraid when Pearl Harbor happened because we didn't know where we were going to be bombed next. So fear and second reason was the prejudice and racism against Asians, particularly Japanese Americans. Thirdly is the lack of political leadership. Our politicians were more interested in getting votes than justice, just like today.
Right, exactly, just like today.
They're only interested in the next election. They're not. And then we had no voice in Congress, nobody to speak on our behalf. So that was the 3 reasons why the commission determined was the cause of our incarceration. So their recommendation was that an official apology be given and a small token amount of money, which is $20,000 per person.
Per person, wow.
So we had to campaign again to get this law passed. So we campaigned again, and finally in 1988, that law was passed through Congress. So those are some of the votes, actual votes that were cast.
Wow.
And then over here, you'll actually see the commission hearing.
Oh, okay, that's a hearing, huh?
So that's an actual hearing that was held in,
Wow.
yeah, I think the one in Los Angeles.
Wow.
The government we trusted, the country we
Pretty
loved,
interesting, wow.
the nation to which we had pledged loyalty.
A lot of history in this place. This is Ronald
And
Reagan.
so this is you'll see that, you'll see there when he's signing it, but
Yeah.
this is the Civil Liberties Act of 1980, which signed by the President and Congress to officially apologizing for what happened.
Wow.
And that's still part of the hearing when it was this woman from the Bay, South Bay there. She would never acknowledge the fact that we were sent to a concentration camp, and so she would write articles in the paper. She would go to our radio stations, and she came to our hearing and tried to disrupt one of the speeches.
Supreme Court in the wartime cases of Wakamatsu, Hirobayashi, and Yasui, that the Japanese Americans posed no military threat to this country.
The other judicial effort is that of the National Council American redress. The NCJAR files a class action suit that articulates 22 causes of action. The case seeks roughly $27.5 billion. The months leading up to the congressional votes were filled with focused lobbying efforts. The JACL was able to gain audiences with several key legislators.
JCO.
NCRR steps up its
That's really interesting. Wow. So this is almost the end of the tour then?
Yeah, this is the end, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is really good.
But you see the actual, some of the hearing, and you see.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
You'll see the president actually signing the bill.
President Reagan, yeah. That was Reagan. That was one of the very few things that he
This is what he
did.
signed.
Wow.
This is the Civil Liberties Act of 1988.
Mm-hmm.
That's the actual pen that he used to sign the bill.
Wow. That was one of the few things that Ronald Reagan did that was good.
And then, since there's no money allocated by Congress, we couldn't get the money in 1988.
Uh-huh.
So it was in 1990 that we got the official apology.
Oh,
This is
okay.
the official apology.
Until 1990, huh?
Yeah, so it's signed by George Herbert Walker Bush.
Oh, Bush was the one that signed that, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember talking to people that were, because I started working in Little Tokyo back in the 80s, and they were talking about that. Yeah, when I used to work at the Sugar Bowl Cafe.
Which one?
Sugar Bowl?
Oh, Sugar Bowl?
Yeah, we used to have the 442 bowl there all the time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so, yeah, I used to work in Little Tokyo for a long time. Yeah. But you did a great job. Thank you so much. You're very informative.
Well,
I can tell you're very
I guess
passionate about what you're talking about. And you have a lot of
This
knowledge
is-
and history.
Yeah, because I lived it.
You lived it,
know,
exactly.
I lived it,
You're the
so-
perfect person to do this kind of a tour, really. You know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
My
you. It's very
pleasure.
nice. Very honored to
My
meet
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So we'll have to go and find my family. I know my brother just took off.
Yeah, too bad. It's hard for people to comprehend all this. You know?
Yeah, no, it's history. It's a lot of information, yeah. But it's kind of interesting because we're reliving it right now.
Yeah.